Extra Time on Tipp FM, powered by Munster Solar, your local solar experts, delivering clean, cost-effective energy solutions for a brighter tomorrow. See munstersolar.ie.
Hello, good evening and welcome to another edition of Extra Time. My name is Ronan Quirk. We're here until 8 o'clock this evening. We'd love to hear from you. As usual, lots to come on Extra Time this evening because we've a lot of games to cover that took place over the course of the weekend. Tipperary and Waterford were in action in Walsh Park in the second last game in the National Hurling League for Tipp. Scheduled second last game in the National Hurling League for Tipp. It was Waterford's final game, and defeat for Waterford at the hands of Tipperary 224 to 123 sees Waterford relegated from Division 1A. Tipperary now go on to a final game next Saturday night at 7 o'clock in the stadium against Kilkenny in a game that doesn't mean a huge lot other than getting ready for championship. Should be a decent crowd, I would imagine, on a good night weather-wise forecast next Saturday night. If you can't make it to Semple Stadium, which we hope you do, you can hear the game live here on Tipp FM from 7 o'clock. Throw-in is the 7 o'clock time next Saturday night. Tipp Kilkenny. We'll talk about that, but more we'll focus on events in Walsh Park. Yesterday the footballers were in action in under 20 football in Kilmurky Ibrick up in Quilty on Saturday afternoon. Defeat in the opening round of the Munster Championship at the hands of Clare. We'll have reaction to that. We'll also have reaction to a fairly comprehensive, and putting it mildly, win for Wicklow in the National Football League Division 4 yesterday that really scuppers and puts paid to any prospect we might have had of promotion. It finished Wicklow 319, Tipperary 14 points. We've lots to talk about with Ger as well, with Camogie. Tipperary getting a draw against Cork in the National Camogie League. Clonmel RFC winning their first ever trophy as a senior club at the weekend as well, with victory over Old Crescent. We'll have reaction from that. We'll have reaction from Cheltenham 2026 with David Burns, and we'll have local soccer as well with Barry Ryan. Don't forget you can text us on 083 311 3311. Let's hear first and foremost from Liam Cahill. He spoke to the assembled media after our defeat of Waterford yesterday.
Yeah, I suppose a mixture of happy but also relieved as well, I suppose, in a lot of ways. You know, it was a fairly serious game there today for both sides, like, albeit not be the end of the world if you got beaten, but for us, retaining our Division 1A status is very important for us. So and plus we knew coming down here, anytime you come to Walsh Park you're always going to earn it, and both teams really went at it there from the outset. And however good both sides were there today, they will improve a lot from that, and we'll do it all again here in 5 weeks' time, and it'll be every bit as intense, if not more.
Was it a win we kind of the group needed maybe after back-to-back defeats? There's probably even for confidence and things like that, and a result and the performance that was needed.
Yeah, look, you always need to keep the momentum going, and we shifted two tough defeats with Cork and Limerick, and we needed to make sure that we were still functioning okay today, and we got a huge test. Like early on, Waterford created a lot of chances, created a lot of hassle for us with their movement and their energy, and their picking off points from range, and then their movement inside, and there was a lot going on. But in fairness to our lads at half time, they really came together again, and a couple of little instructions and a few chats with everybody. The players went after it and addressed it, and really came out in the second half and took it on.
Were you worried at half time? It was 8 points, but it was only kind of when I was walking across the field after that you realised how strong that wind was, that you kind of probably, the wind was going to help, but there probably need to be a bit more intensity or something from the lads in the second half.
Yeah, no, we said if we were playing again that win in the first half, we set a target to be within 6 at half time, so we were a little bit off, all right. But having said that, the awareness was there that if we were playing again the wind, that was usually going to be the case, that we were going to be chasing the game in the second half. And that wind was probably more than in an 8-point lead really. And I suppose Waterford in reflection possibly disappointed didn't go in maybe a little bit more up at half time, but again, I think we showed good composure in the second half, never panicked, kept the scoreboard ticking over, and got great intensity back into a few more of the established players, we'll call them, that are coming back from injury, and then obviously the few newbies as well got their opportunity to get a taste of I suppose, real inter-county hurling.
And Ronan Maher getting back in, but you mentioned one of the newbies, Stephen Tobin, young man, his first start, 4 points from play. You have to be pleased with that, Sean, from him.
Yeah, look, Stephen is a great young fella. He's really loving the challenge of trying to step up to inter-county senior hurling, and he's a real tenacious young man that chases everything. And today wasn't going to define his inter-county career. It's only the start for him. But it's nice to be able to put players like Stephen and Kevin McCarthy and a few others that we've introduced during the league into them kind of environments, because we have to make sure that we're bringing through as many as we can, as well as staying competitive and trying to make sure that we try and pick up silverware along the way.
Liam, were there a few harsh words spoken at half time, because as you admit yourself, Waterford could have been further ahead of the break?
Not really. There was a lot of awareness in the room. Like, these fellas, these players have great awareness to us. They're, you don't have to come in and tell them where they went wrong, and they'll know themselves. And it's not that everybody was to be faulted. Like, there was a number of players that knew individually they were a little bit behind where their expectations would be. But once we address that and get in among them and start making sense of what had gone on in the first half, the players themselves started to really go after and fix them areas. So that's what you're always trying to, I suppose, achieve and go after in a coaching or a management position, is to empower players to have that awareness, and with the support of the people that manage them and coach them, they fix it and try and resolve it and try and improve. So it's all part of our lessons and journey, I suppose, that we'll continue to be on, hopefully into April and further, please God.
Just a word for Benny Kiley.
Yes.
Liam, because I'm sure you would have got to know him and the rest of Michael Kiley's family during your time here in Waterford. Yeah,
absolutely. It's been a really tough week on Mikey Kiley and the Kiley family, and I suppose everybody in Waterford GA, to be fair. We send out our deepest condolences to Mikey and his brother Jack, his mum Dolores. We were, he's very good friends with a lot of players in our dressing room, and obviously I worked with Mikey here when my time in Waterford, and was the one, I suppose, that brought him into the Waterford senior hurling set up initially. So we had a great relationship, and it was a very emotional day on Monday. We were down at the funeral, and Benny seemed to be a great character. I only met him once or twice while I was here, but I know that he'd be very, very proud, and always was proud of Mikey, but he'd be extra proud of him again today, the way he came on and nearly swung it in Waterford's favour when he came on. So a tough week for everybody, especially the Kiley family. We send out all our sympathies from everybody here in the Tipperary senior hurling team.
I suppose the win today, Liam, gives you a free hit now next weekend against Kilkenny, doesn't it?
That's Liam Cahill speaking to the assembled media at the end of the match in Walsh Park yesterday. Let's go to the phone lines. Ken Hogan's on the line. How are you, Ken?
How are you keeping, Ronan?
I'm very well, Ken. What pleased you most about yesterday?
I suppose what
apart from the win,
we were 6 points down in the All-Ireland final, and we were 10 points down with in injury time in the first half. And I suppose the most pleasing aspect was we nipped 2 points through our excellent debutant Stephen Tobin, and of course Andrew Ormond, who came in and made a big impact. So I think the impact of the bench was very important yesterday, but overall our calmness, even though we were 8-10 points down at stages, was that we just kept ticking the scoreboard, and eventually, it took a long time, but the lads were patient and eventually got over the line. Not everything was rosy in the garden. Liam has alluded to that. There is work to do. They had a great block of training done in the last few weeks because of no match practice. So from that point of view, he felt that their hurling wasn't as up to speed, and I'm sure in the next 4 or 5 weeks that will be all remedied.
The last game against Limerick, the team looked very, very different. Like, we were very heavy-legged, I thought, against Limerick in the stadium. We looked like that the players just were stuck to the ground, for want of a better phrase. I didn't get a sense of that, particularly in the second half yesterday. So I suppose my question is, we're all gearing up to the 19th of April, and are you getting a sense from looking at the team that whatever was going on against Limerick was part of a training programme, and that this is what we're seeing now is more reflective of where we need to be?
Yeah, those winter nights, Ronan, conditions are so poor, and pitches, even the best of pitches, even in Morris Park, are in a poor condition because of the fact of the inclement weather. So it's hard to do really fast, quick hurling, in pitches like that. Some teams obviously have the AstroTurf. The AstroTurf is below in feathered as well, but Tipp wouldn't get the opportunity to get down there too often. So I think we've been plodding along. Yesterday, to be fair, Walsh Park was in pretty good nick. I think the lads took a while to adjust. We were against a very strong wind. As I said last week, it was the perfect preparation and dress rehearsal for what's going to come in Championship. But we know Championship is 100 miles away from what we saw yesterday, because Waterford will come all guns blazing. We're the defending All-Ireland champions, and there's a huge carrot at stake, to qualify out of Munster. So from that perspective, I'm just looking through the Waterford group there, Ronan. Like you still have Stephen Bennett, who was hamstrung. You still have the Mahonys from Ballygunner, the Fitzgeralds, all to come back into the reckoning there for them,
And Tadhg de Burke hasn't played very much in recent times either.
No, Tadhg played yesterday. Now, to be fair to him, Patrick Curran wasn't used yesterday. So, there's plenty of players there. We have a number of players to obviously bring back in. The Kilkenny game, it was mentioned there in that interview. I think even though in a sense it could be a dead rubber unless Tipperary win by a whirlwind score, I think it is a very important game for both teams. There's a lot of stick going on in Kilkenny at the moment, so they're going to come up to Thurles, with the bit between the teeth. And of course, our players, you see the likes of Stephen Tobin coming in yesterday. The way Oisin O'Donoghue adjusted to the half back line, what an auxiliary player to have. So from that perspective, I think everybody's fighting for the place in that 26.
You want to talk about Stephen Tobin, but you don't want to overdo it, because he's still a very, very young man who's learning inter-county hurling on a daily basis, I'd imagine. But as inter-county debuts go, that's as good as it gets, I think.
Of course, and we didn't want to get too excited about Darren McCarthy last year, but...
Oisin, yeah. And even, we've so many young fellas, like even Sam is still young, and... I could go on.
Of course they are, and they weren't even in the squad yesterday. Noel McGrath, Willie Connor's not in the squad yesterday, Brian McGrath. So I think, we've loads of young hurlers. Is to get the gel right. I think the management team, using Oisin Donoghue, as that type of who has that type of versatility, is it's a great rabbit in the hat to have. And I think overall, Waterford's running game has got to be curtailed. There was a number of things that came up yesterday. Shane Bennett, who has had a new lease of life at left half back for Waterford, he's been the player of the league in actual fact, having watched him a number of occasions there. So he's the guy that's going to have to be tied down in a big way. Jamie Barney's still a big threat up front. Sean Walsh causes problems on the full forward line. Desi Hutchison 5 from play. So, as well as our display yesterday, we saw the usual top-class scores, and John McGrath again producing the goods. But Liam and Mikey and co, they'll have to have their homework done going down to Walsh Park, because it could be a totally different world, and the heads are well aware of that.
Yeah. A word on next week. You've kind of mentioned that Kilkenny aren't particularly in a good place, or so it would appear. But Kilkenny, they're coming to Semple Stadium, and maybe their need for a win trumps ours. We're safe, highly unlikely to make a league final. Maybe don't particularly want to go all guns blazing to try and make a league final. It's kind of interesting from that point of view, because Tipp don't want to limp into Championship either. How would you see it going?
I think it's going to be for a game that has a huge amount at stake. I think it's going to be a great game. You can imagine Tipp a month out from Championship, 4 weeks away, getting ready for a huge game. Kilkenny in the Leinster Championship as well. People are talking about the Galways and the Dublins, but you never write off Kilkenny. They still have TJ, Adrian Mullen, and maybe Hugh Lawler talks about him returning from his travels. So they're a formidable outfit. We had a savage game with him in the All-Ireland semi-final last year. A flick of a kind could have went the other way, as you well know, Ronan. And of course they're smarting still from that defeat. You saw what Limerick were like. They came up to us 3 weeks ago, and they were in some fettle, because of the fact that they were hurting from last year. I expect a response from Kilkenny, but I also expect that Liam would expect a response from his group, because he knows his group of players have to produce the goals. They have to show championship form. Liam, the perfectionist he is, he will be disappointed with some aspects of the play yesterday and maybe a few of the players that didn't play up to speed. And he'll be expecting these guys, we're expecting a very good week actually, weather-wise, thank God.
Yeah, it is, yeah.
So I say Tipp Stadium, it'll be in fine fettle on Saturday evening, and I'm expecting a right good game.
You gotta have to keep reminding yourself, don't you, Ken, that it's only a month away to championship, and we haven't really hit top gear yet. I don't think at any stage have we certainly haven't put 70 minutes of hurling, good quality hurling, together yet this year. How does the league form that you've seen so far from 5 league games frame what's going to happen in a month's time, or should I just ignore that?
It's not that you ignore anything. I mean, Liam always has mentioned the league was very good to Tipperary last year. We expect the league to be of the same, this year from the point of view of, obviously we haven't had a spectacular time. Liam has mentioned a lot of times that we obviously were maybe 3-4 weeks behind the other county teams because of the fact that we had a long All-Ireland championship, and of course the county championship then finishing up late, and their foreign travels for their All-Ireland win. So I think we're coming at the right time. I think players are beginning to show form at the right time. It's brilliant to see Owen Connolly and Ronan Maher back, in that access in the defence. And I suppose, above all, to get John McGrath, Jake Morris back into form. You saw Jake, in the first half, he seemed off colour. In the second half, he just produced the goods. He ran the whole show and produced a brilliant goal for Grode O'Connor. And we have to mention Grode O'Connor as well. Double Fitzgibbon winner, he still has a lot to contribute. Seeing he had played very well, showed good form in training the last few weeks. So it's great to see him coming on and getting a goal and a point. And again, giving us extra options, because every player, we play the 19th, and I see Waterford are playing the 19th. We played the 26th against Waterford in Walsh Park. So you're going to need the nucleus of 26 players for that 2-game saga.
Yeah, it's intriguing. There's a lot to talk about between now and then. Ken, many thanks for your time. We'll talk again next week.
Great stuff. Thanks, Ronan.
Thanks indeed. Ken Hogan joining us there. Lots to talk about, lots of texts coming in, which I'll come to in a minute. JJ Kennedy, how are you?
Hi, Ronan.
I always ask you to start with the same question. Your takeaways from yesterday?
I guess I don't want to go repeating stuff that Ken is on about, but I suppose the second half and the way the team turned it around in the second period was the most important aspect of it. There was a spell in the first half, and we were beginning to think this is the Limerick performance all over again. It had that sort of appearance about it. We were off the pace. They were outworking us. They were running past us, creating space, and we just weren't putting a glove on them in some cases. And it was such an important game for Tipperary. I mean, a defeat there yesterday would have had serious consequences, I think. So to get it right at half-time and to come out in a different attitude and to get big performances from individuals, I think that would be the most pleasing aspect of it. Not perfect by any means, but sufficient unto the day, and a win that was absolutely essential for so many reasons. And that would have been the most pleasing aspect of it.
If you're to sort of be a glass half empty merchant, you might say that the league so far has been patchy. There's been some good passages of play, maybe a good half here and there, but certainly not a good 70 minutes. If you're a glass half full merchant, you might say, look at the players we've uncovered. Would that be a fair analysis of the 5 games so far?
Yeah, I think that's probably a fair analysis. It has been a poor enough league campaign, I think. Call it patchy, maybe. I suppose the Galway win was useful enough, particularly in view of what Galway have done since. But you can dismiss the Offaly game. That's irrelevant, really, to the whole thing. And the big ones then, Cork and Limerick, we were found badly wanting in those. Lucky enough to escape against Cork, I suppose, with just a 7-point defeat, but really trimmed against Limerick, which is why this one was so important. And in fairness, a lot of new players have been given exposure. And of course, you mentioned Stephen Tobin, who was outstanding yesterday. It was brilliant to see a young lad coming in and doing that. But ultimately, Ron, at the end of the day, you're going back towards your team from last year and the tried and trusted. So, you had Robert Dial and Ronan Maher and Mikey Breen all back on board yesterday, which was great, and to get a match like that into them. And in fairness, in different ways, maybe they just struggled a bit early on to get into it, but worked their way into it. I mean, Robert Dial was typical, I suppose, had an absolutely horrendous first half, chasing shadows against Deise Hutchinson, but really, really got in his face in the second half, and Deise didn't score after half time. So it was a bit like that with a lot of the players. I thought they're really only working their way back into it. John McGrath was the same. I mean, he his first touch just looked off in the first half, but again, he worked his way into the game, and by the end of the match, TJ Cahir gave him the Man of the Match award, and that was fair enough after scoring 1-4 and involved in other scores. So it's moving in the right direction. You're getting the regular guys back. You have given exposure to a lot of the newer guys. Not too many of them will be on, I guess, for April 19th, but they're there, and you're building the background. You're building the depth of the panel, and so from that perspective, it was good. And we'll wait and see what the Kilkenny match brings, because even though there's nothing at stake, because as you said, I think yourself, Bear, a mathematical miracle, we're not going to make the final, and so it's a kind of a free shot at Kilkenny. But Tipp and Kilkenny, there's never an irrelevant game between those two counties. I mean, they don't like losing to each other.
No, they don't, and it's the last game before championship for both, so that has to be looked at through that prism, I think, as well.
Yeah, and especially where Kilkenny are coming from. I mean, it's a new experience for Kilkenny to be coming from a defeat like that, at 18-point defeat or whatever it was to Galway. They're not used to that. And the commentary
that's come as well from it, JJ. I mean, like, there was some media analysts who said Kilkenny gave up, and I'd say that's dung down there.
Yeah, because you never ever associate that with Kilkenny. In fairness to them as a county, you'd have to admire them even on days when they're beaten. They just battle it out to the very end. It's part of the culture there.
Tell Nina CBS that, Jill. They know all about it. Like,
yeah, absolutely. It will have stung, and I would imagine there will be a backlash from that on Saturday night. Even though there's nothing at stake for them, there will be a backlash, and they'll have to sort of restore some pride. And I'd imagine they'll come all guns blazing because of that. So it's in its own way, it's going to be an interesting game.
Yeah, Tom joins us. How are you, Tom?
Hello, Ronan. Well, JJ.
Hi, Tom.
Tom, just on how important was that win over Waterford yesterday in to put it in context for us, and also just very briefly on the Waterford point of view. I wouldn't spend too long talking about them, but they beat Limerick, gave their supporters lots of hope, and ended up getting relegated. It's just typical Waterford, really, isn't it?
Yeah, but the tight margins in that division, Ron, I suppose, really, that matches have gone a bit like the Six Nations. Like, matches have gone, against the grain here and there. Like, but I think you can't put enough emphasis on the win yesterday. I think the method of the win, how it was achieved as well, was important. That kind of got them. If you lost yesterday, I think the conversation tonight would be, it could be very much, back foot management called into question, all that type of stuff. And you still have the shot on Saturday night at Kilkenny. But I think the way it was achieved, I think it's much harder to chase down the margin rather than hold on to a lead. And we're such a serious test. I mean, 5 minutes before half time, we were 10 points down, got a couple of points. Then Waterford got it back out to 10 again. But 2 points before half-time were fierce important like that. 8 points is very manageable in hurling, but 10 points is a lot, like, no matter what the conditions are. And I would put a bit into the conditions in the first half too, that we were doing a bit of managing that sort of Waterford never really looked like threatening a goal. Like that, they got the goal all right, but it was a route one ball. But Waterford, with their play and that, this through the lines and use all those terms, that they never really threatened to get the goal. And I think that was good too, that our structure was such that we were set up not to concede goals, not to give yourself a mountain to climb, and that maybe caught you in other areas around the middle third. I think there was a good bit of looseness there, but I think that was that we were minding the house a little bit as well. But no, I think it was a decent outcome now, and achieved with fair. I give him a good lot of pluses for yesterday. Now, apart from the 2 points was very good, but I think the weight to achieve was also important.
Okay, JJ, the Gearóid O'Connor, just a quick word on him. Word is he's hurling very well, training very well, got his chance yesterday, took his goal. I was looking at it yesterday thinking maybe a role closer to goal for Gearóid might be something that is worth employing, an inside forward role for him. Like, he played a lot of his time at Intercounty and Fitzgibbon sort of as a half forward rather than an inside forward. Is there any merit in that argument?
Yeah, certainly took his goal very well yesterday from inside there, and he's an interesting player because last year he was on the team early on and went out of favour and went off to 26 even for match days, and there was a feeling maybe is that the end of it for him. But obviously Liam Cahill, to be fair with him, he's always watching players even when they have a bad spell, and not just dismissing them out of hand and thinking that there is something here if we show a bit of patience and give him another chance or whatever. And obviously he's been shown form in training. Some of us were surprised to see that he was back on the team, but obviously there was a reason for it. And maybe show that yesterday, taking that goal and other involvements in the play he had as well. So it's an interesting point. Maybe inside corner forward, he's a big lad, well able to hurl and well able to score when the chance arises. So it's he remains another option for the forward line. Anyway.
Maybe I sound like a dinosaur, but sometimes when a game's in the mix, putting a big lad on the edge of the square might well be what the tonic a team needs.
Yeah, it can work. Yeah, and on occasions he has been good in the air, and I suppose, and funnily enough, teams are coming back a bit more to that idea of the route one ball into the full forward, more the traditional method, and Waterford are certainly doing it because with this lad Sean Walsh, who seems to have huge potential, he's a real target man inside there and caused us some problems. Which made it all rather extraordinary that the goal they gave away to us in the first half came from a short puck out, which seems extraordinary when you have a gale behind you and you have a full forward who's causing problems, that you start giving a short puck out to a full back. Just doesn't make sense to me. But anyway, that's the way the modern method is gone.
Yeah. Tom, we didn't get your view on next Saturday night against Kilkenny. Kilkenny perhaps need it more than we do.
No, I think both teams need it, and I'll be surprised if both teams don't go at it hammer and tongs, because it's going to be the mathematical miracles. I think we're away from the mathematical miracles. I don't see the league final being to take a 30-point turnaround or something like that. So I don't see that happening for us to be the league final. So Saturday night is your last match before you play Cork a month later. So kind of tis an important match for whatever 15 is selected and whatever lads get played. Plus the fact that Kilkenny have this the no-show above in Salt Hill, they'll want to redress that too. And there's no such thing as flying the white flag before teams go out in matches now. Once they cross the white line, the competitive juices come in, and what wets it better than Tipp and Kilkenny? And we'll hardly take 3 nights to play it like there a couple of years ago with the snow and all that. So I think JJ mentioned there already, the forecast for the rest of the week is good. So good conditions, good crowd, good competition, and competition for places on both sides. And I'd be really looking forward to Saturday night now, and looking forward to a decent contest, and let's go at it hammer and tongs and best horse jump the ditch then. And you get to 8 points in the league would be important, and Kilkenny will want to redress the problems that they had the last day. And I think their problems the last day in Salt Hill were somewhat similar to our problems the last night in the stadium. So both crowds will want to banish that, and work and remedying the faults that was there the last time. So up for it and go at it, and put your hand up then for the match against Cork in 4 weeks' time. I think that's coming on the radar very, very, very quickly. And then Waterford down to Walsh Park the week after, and Waterford done things yesterday. They won't do them in 4.5 weeks' time. They made mistakes, but they'll have learned from yesterday as well. So look, big battles now. The next three games are going to be massive. And I'd start with putting the marker up next Saturday night.
Last word with you, JJ. Marker put down on Saturday night. I can agree with a lot of what Tom just said.
I think so. It's one of those. It's a great game to be in, I think, really, because it's one of those games where maybe you're looking at the performance more so than the actual final result. It's not an absolute win game, so you can go out and play with a bit of freedom. And if you lose by a few points, there's nothing lost really. But the performance is the big thing. Our league campaign has been a bit up and down. And as the last game in the series, we certainly want to finish it on a high with a really good, positive performance, and that would put us in good mood then going forward 4 weeks later, bringing Cork to the stadium, which is going to be some event.
It sure is, and we'll have lots more time to talk about it in the 3 weeks when we won't be playing any league matches. And gents, thanks for your time tonight. We'll talk soon.
Thanks, Ronan.
Take care. Tom will be back with us in a minute. We're going to continue our chat about Gaelic games, particularly football, back after this.
Extra time on Tipp FM, powered by Munster Solar, your local solar experts, delivering clean, cost-effective energy solutions for a brighter tomorrow. See munstersolar.ie.
Tipp FM is the place for outstanding news coverage that keeps you informed, engaged and connected. Our team of dedicated journalists work around the clock to bring you the stories that matter most in Tipperary. With the 8 a.m. morning news, the main lunchtime news at 1 p.m. and the 5:45. Your community, your voice, your news. Only on Tipperary's Tipp FM. The Tipp FM Sports Star of the Month with the Talbot Hotel Clonmel.
David Powers, the Tipp FM Sports Star of the Month for February. The Kilsheelan native had a busy month of coaching as he took UL to their first ever Sigerson Cup title, helped High School Clonmel to a Munster final, all while managing the Tipp ladies footballers in the league. He will now receive a specially crafted piece from Cork Trophies Limited, which will be presented at our annual award ceremony at the Talbot Hotel in Clonmel. Nominations for the month of March are now open, so send yours to sportstar@tippfm.com.
With the Talbot Hotel Clonmel, get your nominations in now.
Extra time on Tipp FM, powered by Munster Solar, your local solar experts, delivering clean, cost-effective energy solutions for a brighter tomorrow. See munstersolar.ie.
Our text number is 083 311 3311. We'll hear from Niall Fitzgerald in a few minutes, but I just want to have a quick word with Paul Jenkins and Tom McGrath. Paul was on duty for us yesterday in Auckland. Paul, how are you?
I'm good, Ron. Yourself?
I'm good. I'm always like your commentary, but I was finding some of the reports a little hard to listen to yesterday because it was so one-sided.
Yeah, it was pretty bad. Even at half time, it was 2-15 to 3 points. So what's that? 18 points down at half time. It's hard to come back from that, and it feels like a huge missed opportunity for the team, really, because in a lot of ways that was their biggest match of the year. The way things transpired, if they'd won yesterday, the way the results went in other games, Carlow losing to London last night, the Longford and Leitrim match, the way that went, if they'd actually won yesterday, they'd be top of the league. They'd be playing Waterford next week, which is a fairly winnable game. That puts you into the league final, and then you're playing Division 3 next year, playing Croke Park in 2 weeks' time. It was a huge game in a lot of ways, and just really disappointing that they didn't perform yesterday.
And any explanation that you could see? I mean, conditions probably were difficult. I know that there was a strong wind everywhere around the country yesterday, in Waterford and in Auckland as well. But God almighty, that first half performance meant you were never going to win the game.
Yeah, Auckland was no different. Yeah, huge breeze. And Wicklow got 5 2-pointers in that first half. Like Mark Jackson, who was probably one of the best dead ball kickers in the game. We saw him over in America a few months ago trying to make it over there and everything. He got 2. Their half forward there, Kevin Quinn, he got 3 2-pointers. And there were things of beauty. The kickouts in particular were something I imagine Niall Fitzgerald wasn't too happy about. Mark Jackson was picking out his players every time. Their second goal came directly from a kick out to the midfielder. He turned, gave it into the inside line, and they were able to score nearly a tap-in goal from that. Tipperary looked like they were a bit nervous. Now, I did ask Niall Fitzgerald about this. He didn't put it down to nerves in any way, but it looked like they just wanted to get into the perfect position for a shot every single time. They had the ball for maybe 4 to 5 minutes at the very start of the game and didn't even take a shot. It took them 28 minutes to get their second point of the game. It just looked like they didn't have someone to burst holes in that Wicklow defence, and then when they did get through there on a couple of times, they felt like they couldn't take the shot on. It's what it looked like to me. Now again, as I said, Niall Fitzgerald had a different take on it. He was saying we were happy enough to hold on to the ball given the breeze we were playing into, and we were afraid to be exposed down the other end. But it just felt like they needed someone to just take the game by the scruff of the neck and get a couple of scores.
Tom, any thoughts on it? Why Tipperary found themselves in a position, particularly after the Carlow defeat the night before? They knew what a win would mean, and yet, I don't know, just didn't seem to want to grasp that opportunity in the manner that they might have done.
Well, I suppose pressure manifests itself in different ways, like. But then it's how you're prepared, like. And based on what Paul is saying there, like, it looks as if it was a predetermined thing that we were going to hold on to the ball, we weren't going to take shots, but you won't hold on to the ball for 35 minutes, like. And then Wicklow, like, and great teams have gone to Ockram and have been handed a bit of a trimming, like. So I mean, like, we're not the first team to lose in Ockram, and won't be the last. But the consequences are severe, because the margin of defeat as well, it hurts, because, like, now you could take a crazy set of results. Well, not so much a crazy set of results, like, but you could conceivably end up with one team on 9 points and 5 teams on 8 points after next weekend. Now it takes a couple of. Well, just like we beat Waterford, we get to 8 points, and then Leitrim have to do something else. Well, I'm not sure the exact science is like, but Carlow are a team that's probably going to. They have a bit of atonement to make up for now as well. After they were in a very good position 2 weeks ago, and now they're struggling, and they're a team that would give their eye teeth to get out of Division 4, but, like, they may not do it now. So, and Leitrim then turning over Longford, there was always a performance in Leitrim, and sort of, you'd go back and look. It wasn't maybe yesterday that we lost points as well, but yesterday was the one that done an awful lot of damage, and like I said, it's going to be very hard to come back from it. But the important thing to do is you have one game, Waterford at home, you beat Waterford, finish the league on a high, finish the league with 8 points, and I think 8 points would be a decent return from where you were at the start of the league. Now, they may find 8 points acceptable now, like, but that's the way it is, like.
I accept everything you've said, Tom, and Paul, just bring you in. I can't help but have a lot of what ifs in my head about that league campaign as a whole.
Yeah, and people have said to me, it's Niall Fitzgerald's first year in charge, and maybe this is a year too early. But, like, you have to take the chances when they're in front of you. And it felt like yesterday was a big chance, as Tom was saying there. The results in other matches really helped Tipperary if they could have just kicked on. But it did seem to be playing with the handbrake on to a certain extent, and they just weren't taking on the shots maybe when they were there. And now the way things have gone, I know what Tom is saying there. Mathematically, we have a great chance, but it's our score difference that's really going to catch us. We're currently on 0. We'll say Carlow have 14 and Wicklow have 26. So that's kind of what Antrim even have 13. So our score difference took a bit of a hammering as well yesterday, which isn't really going to help us going forward either.
Tom, I cut across you.
No, you're okay. Paul has covered it there, like, because the 8 points, you're behind the 8 ball at this stage. no pun intended, like, but no, playing with the handbrake on, like, there's a collective in that. Then you see that if that's the way it is, that was something that was planned. That you had a plan before you started. If we're going to against the wind, this is the way we're going to play. And no, I don't think it was the one to. It was the one that you needed to go at it a bit more positively than that, like, because you have the guys. I mean, I was lauding our scoring power, and particularly we had a couple of marquee forwards had been identified in the league. Sean O'Connor and young Smith, and Stephen O'Brien was coming into form then as well, and Mark Russell could. Yeah, plenty of shooters, like, and plenty of lads to, take it on best method of defence to attack, like. And then your man, now I wouldn't be blaming our own backline with the kickouts into that kind of wind in a strange field is a different thing. Jackson is a top class kicker on his home patch, so he's going to ping him with the wind, and more importantly, he's going to ping him against the wind as well. Like, so he's a big player, and that's the restarts are huge now at this stage, because every ball has to be kicked 25-30 metres to get it outside the 40 zone, like, so. And you have people then that in a wind it climbs, and you have to have lads in to get up and catch it, and sure all the attacker has to do then is break it down, and sure you're on the hind foot straight away. But no, it's a pity. But, like, I'd be looking at the start, what were you expecting from the league? We got a fair bit of the league, but we could have got a little bit more positive. I think we could have got a little bit more of, because the Carlow match was something that was let slip as well. Like, now we're probably lucky in Longford, and maybe to a lesser extent in London you got draws. Like, but there was some good stuff But it's a pity that we're focusing on, and with 7 matches, there'll always be, or 6 matches, there'll always be a blip somewhere, and unfortunately the blip came the wrong day for us yesterday.
Just, I don't know if either of you mightn't have seen it, but the under-20s had an outing in the championship as well against Clare, and we've had a couple of good minor campaigns, Darryl Darcy's, etc., in recent years, so I was quite optimistic about a Tipp team going to Clare for the first round of the championship. That didn't work out either for us, and but we do have games against Limerick and Waterford to come, which are eminently winnable.
I think Waterford went on and beat Limerick in that as well, didn't they? Which was probably a bit of a surprise. I know the Waterford minor team are coming from a few years ago as well, but I think that was a bit of a shock. So, and in fairness to Niall Fitzgerald, he was over the under-20s. He brought players through. He's like the Daithí Hogan, Joe Higgins, those kind of players, Charlie King. And in fairness, they didn't do so bad yesterday. But I thought it was interesting as well. Paddy Creedon been brought back in. I suppose he was early in the year. Yeah, and he was brought in yesterday. He got 2 points when he was brought on. Now, they took off Daithí Hogan, who I think is a diamond of a player. They took him off to bring on Paddy Creedon, so they went with kind of a twin tower situation up front then, as opposed to Daithí. He's a real lively player, and he did try to get into it. In fairness, when he got on the ball, he was only one way to go, and that was towards the goal. But as it always happens in these games, the small corner forward gets taken off if there's nothing going wrong at all, and we bring in the big man. That I just felt Daithí might have been, if you'd given him a few more minutes, he might have done something a little bit more.
Tom, finally.
Yeah, well, I suppose when you go, Paul saying you go to Twin Towers, you're nailing your colours to the mast. Whereas if you keep it mixed, well, you have a guy, because football is gone whether you're with the wind or against it. Still a fair bit of possession in it, and you want a guy that's capable of breaking the line and getting through with ball. And we saw was Darmad the other night as well. All those counties, they all have players, and they're not big fellas, but they're nippy. Great ball control and the swerve and accurate, of course, then as well. And they're the things. So I think it's a blend. But look, desperate situations need desperate remedies, and I suppose we can't be second guessing the boys what they done yesterday. They had done very well, had done more than reasonably well. We won't say very well, but they've done more than well up to now, and it's a pity just that it came unstuck to such an extent yesterday.
Okay, lads, I got to fly. Loads of stuff to cover before I go off air at 6. So thanks for your time, gents. Good luck.
Thank you.
That's Paul Jenkins and Tom McGrath. Ger Canan is on the line. Ger, I'm sorry for leaving you hanging on. How are you? I'm well. Anytime Tipp play Cork, it's always a bit of a marquee game in Camogie, I think, because Cork have been a standard bearer for so long. Your thoughts on yesterday?
Yeah, it was half time. You were concerned. You were 8 points down. Hadn't really played that well, and you were worried what Cork might do in the second half. But you certainly would have taken a draw at half time. But to come back, I suppose, and let the game. You regret not winning. We did have a goal chance that went to maybe in the second half that could have won it in the end. So look, you'd definitely be happy with the manner of the fight back in the second half and to get the draw, and probably unlucky not to get a win. But Cork certainly will. Cork, I would imagine, would be the more point. They were 8 points up, albeit with the strong wind, and Tony scored 2 points from freeze in the second half in their home ground. They'll be very disappointed. So look, plenty of positives from a Tipp point of view, but I suppose the first half disappointing, 2 goals, left maybe 4 or 5 wides, good scoring chances behind, but to get an early goal at the start of the second half from Cueva Stacklem and then to fight back and get a draw at the end was fantastic. And
I'm just wondering what the shot in the arm might be for this, because that team had that disappointment of the game against Kilkenny, and Kilkenny are motoring along nicely, but to go and get that result against Cork, particularly with the second half comeback, it sometimes seasons turn on small things like this.
Yeah, I suppose it's just a bit of belief as well. Look, they are good enough to compete with the Corks, and I suppose you have to take it in perspective as well. I suppose it's probably a much Cork than maybe they got to the All-Ireland final last year. They're probably a bit of transition too. A couple of players retired, and I think Aisling Thompson was a big loss to them through injury. But they still had the Cahillans, and they still had Libby Coppinger and they're a formidable side, obviously, and any time you beat them and get a draw, you'd be happy enough. So look, I think for the younger players like Cueva Stacklem, Isabel O'Donnell, Celine Guinan, it probably all their girls, it would be all their first time playing against Cork as they're in level. So look, there's learning certainly there for them, and I suppose from James' point of view, he knows he has a panel that can compete with the top teams, but it's just all fine. into the last round, we're in a situation where we could still technically get to a league final, or we could still be relegated. So it's a lot to play for still. We're playing Waterford on Saturday at home in the County Camogie ground, and we just need a big court there because we need a result. Waterford are through; they're in the league final. But like, if we get relegated, but there's also a chance of reaching the league final. So, but a lot of results have to go our way for that to happen.
Just very briefly, the Miners were in action. This is Championship now. 11 points to 9 win over Limerick. Very quickly.
Yeah, fantastic result for the Miners. Again, it's been a very tight minor championship. Limerick and I suppose get to a semi-final. The winners guaranteed us a semi-final. With Galway left to play, if we had lost to Limerick, we would have been in real trouble. And look, it was a very tight game. We had the wind in the first half and led by 4 points. But Limerick, fantastic team, from lovely forwards, and we really had to battle hard. It was probably the hardest working performance I've seen from this Tipp minor team this year. And it was enough to get over the line against Limerick. And they'll certainly take huge confidence from this. They've one more game to play, and then an All-Ireland semi-final to look forward to.
Excellent, Ger. Thanks for everything.
Yeah, just one point. Yeah. The under-23s have a Munster final.
Oh, I forgot about the under-23s. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, we're still waiting on confirmation of the fixture, but that's happening this Sunday against Cork, and so we'll just wish them the best luck. And then the Fela finals are on tomorrow at Feathertown Park as well, so let's look to all the clubs and taking part in Fela A and B as well.
Busy time, Ger.
Yeah, certainly is.
Yeah, listen, talk soon. Thanks for that. Ger Kinane there, sorry that line wasn't the best, but I certainly you got the main points, I think, from what Ger Kinane was telling us about that draw with Cork and the minor win over Limerick. Joe Winston's on the line, talk rugby for a few minutes. How are you, Joe?
Not so bad yourself, Ronan.
Was that, I think I'm right in saying, the first time Clonmel have won a trophy at senior rugby level?
Yeah, absolutely. The Gerald played, so we're very proud of that, obviously. And we're not that long a senior club, and to achieve what we've achieved over the last 20 years is fantastic.
I'm thinking about the season as it is at the moment, and winning is a habit, momentum is a habit, and you've brought your league form into that competition. It wasn't so much that you beat Old Crescent in the final, but the manner of the victory, I think, must be pleasing.
Absolutely, yeah. As you say, when you're on a winning run, the confidence is high. And the lads, I mean, it wasn't our best performance, and to be honest, Crescent probably weren't at their strongest, but that wasn't our problem. Our problem was to go out and win the game, which we did practically.
And now it brings into the latter stages of the season, couple of league matches to go, chance to top the league.
Yeah, we've 3 games left, Malahide away, Dolphin and Clonmel, and then Ballyclare away, but we're 4 points clear of Beckton, who are in second place, and 5 clear of Thomond. So the aim is to top the division and then have a home semi-final and hopefully a home final.
Yeah, that would be quite something. Just to get kind of those big knockout games in Clonmel would, I think, just garner a lot of support, even more support than you'd be getting.
Yeah. Again, on Friday night out in Feathers Towns Park, we had a lot of support out there, and I've seen it with our games this season, that we're getting big crowds coming to it.
Yeah, it's great.
We're very appreciative of the support we're getting.
I could talk rugby for another hour after all that happened this weekend, but I got to fly, Joe. Some other time, perhaps.
Okay, Ron.
Take care. Congratulations to Clonmel on winning their first trophy at senior level. David Burns is on the line. Talk horse racing briefly to us. How are you, David?
I'm good, Ron. How are you?
I'm very well. My intro to this is a few years ago I was having a conversation with somebody about which Irish sports people are at the absolute top of their game at world level, like the best in the world at what they do. Katie Taylor was one. And at the time, I think we included Ruby Walsh in that because he was winning all around with Paul Nicholls. He only ever won 2 Gold Cups. Paul Townend has won 5. He's surpassed Pat Taff. I mean, this is extraordinary. I've run out of superlatives.
It is extraordinary, and I suppose you're mentioning Paul Town, and you have to mention the man he works for as well, in Willie Mullins.
He knows a thing or two about it as well, yeah.
He certainly does, and what he has achieved and what he's continuing to achieve year in, year out. Him and Aidan O'Brien, I suppose, are setting the standard bearers for both national hunt and flat racing, and, you know, when they go across to Cheltenham like Willie Mullins does year in, year out, it takes some extraordinary effort. Look, it's great to have the horses like that, but you've mentioned Paul Town. Look, what he has done has been extraordinary, winning 5 Gold Cups, and I think some of his rides outside of Gaelic Warrior last week were just absolutely extraordinary. He's a magnificent judge of pace. He's a superb jockey, and he's one of the best in the business. And as you said, he is up there with any world-class sports person. And look, I think, you know, you looked at the likes of Tony Mackay and Ruby Walsh in the past, and Barry Garrity, and you can go through many more national hunt jockeys. But without a doubt, he's just different class. He's world-class jockey.
I think it would be very unfair on Paul Townend to say, well, he's got the best horses, Willie has the best horses, Willie gets them to Cheltenham in the right condition. I think what you saw this week, and you know this better than me, but some of the rides he gave were so tactically on the money and in race transitioning as to what he wants to do. I don't think there's anyone better.
No, he's just a magnificent judge of pace. He's a superb jockey. He's not alone. Look, you are right in what you're saying about the quality of horses that he's sitting up on, but that's one part of the equation. It's being able to judge the pace, it's to judge the fractions, to be able to know whether you make the running, whether you sit in second or third, whether you do lots of things. Paul Townend very, very seldom makes any mistake. I can't remember the last time that I've heard someone say Paul Townend's been on a horse and he said he should have done this, he should have done that. That's how good this man is. He knows absolutely day in, day out to give, you know, the best horses the best opportunity of winning, and he's just world class at what he does.
Yeah, and you know, he wasn't going to be even beyond Gaelic Warrior, I don't think.
No,
because I think
that's right.
Willie's son was going to be on him.
Yeah, Gallopin the Champ, of course, would have been the mount of Paul Townend. And Willie, look, it's funny because back in the John Durkin, I was at the John Durkin and Punchestown, and it was probably one of the best form lines of the year. It was Factor File and Gaelic Warrior coming to the finish in an absolutely belter of a John Durkin. And I remember leaving Punchestown that day saying, I think we've seen the Gold Cup winner, and I didn't know which one it was. You know what I mean? The winner on the day was Factor File, and then you had Gaelic Warrior, but it was very, very hard to say. But after that, I had heard Patrick Mullins say in an interview or two, he said, look, Gaelic Warrior will win the Gold Cup. That's how much he thought about the horse. That was back in November time. And it was extraordinary. And look, Gallopin the Champ was some servant, but what a replacement to have for Willie Mullins and for Paul Townend to sit on board, and for Rich Ritchie in the week he had as well with Lossiemouth being a brilliant winner of the Champion Hurdle. It was just extraordinary week really for both Willie and Paul again.
They're going to have to do something about mares coming up to the Champion Hurdle, aren't they?
Yeah,
the £8 allowance, whatever it is, they're getting. I mean, we saw it.
Look, that's there. That's it. Look, it was took advantage of. It wasn't a great Champion Hurdle this year. From a point of view, look, there was quite a few. Look, I thought it was an average race, to be honest, and I think Willie Mullins made a great decision in running Lossiemouth in it. He put her into the race where, you know, I thought she was never going to be beaten. I thought she was probably the best of last week, and she delivered in some style, because you the likes of the new line in their Lucky's form wasn't good enough, and going into the race, and she was just quality. Okay, she was getting the £7, but look, Brighter Days Ahead was in there as well, and you had a couple of good mares in the race. If it hadn't that same strength, but she was outstanding, and she deserved to win it, and fair play to them as well for making the right decision this year in putting her into the Champion Hurdle instead of going for the Mares Hurdle.
Fair point. I got to fly, David. Thanks as always for your contribution. We'll talk again, I'm sure, around Punchestown. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Ronan.
Not at all. Dave Burns there with horse racing. Very quickly, Barry Ryan, how are you?
How are you, Ronan?
Listen, a couple of key things to talk about. Big wins for Peakville and St Michael's, in a nutshell.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, in a nutshell, it keeps the title race going. Two Mile Burris did what St Michael's did what they had to do. Daniel O'Dwyer on the score sheet again. That's something that'll bode well for them. And another goal for Willie Armstrong as well, 2-0. And then Peakville go to Clonmel, and Clonmel Celtic is never an easy place to go, but they get the job done in a little bit of style. A couple of goals for Pippi Carroll, goal for Dale, goal for Kieran Hennessy, so 5-0 win, and they keep doing their part as well.
Yeah, so I mean, you're looking at the table now, and Peak have played 2 games more than St Michael's, but they have 7 points on them?
Yeah, so basically
7, 8, 9, sorry.
9. So basically, there'll be 3. If both win their games, it'll come down to St Michael's will go to Thurles 3 points behind, needing to win to force the playoff in the last game. But the fly in the ointment is St. Michael's had to play 2 Mile Burris in the league before that. And I don't need to tell you how difficult a task that could be.
Yeah, because, you know, I mean, 2 Mile Burris will want to finish as high as they possibly can. So I don't know. I think it's really set up for a bumper finale, really.
Yeah, look, it really is. St. Michael's will be keenly aware of 2 Mile Burris after beating them in the Tipperary Cup final last year. They've had a couple of tight matches since. They lost to them in the league this year with the one that's caused the 3-point gap. Although, to be fair, people about St. Michael's as well, so you could say that caused a 3-point gap as well. So, look, I think from a neutral point of view, with no offence to Burris, I think everybody would like to see St. Michael's beat Burris, and let's decide it in Thurles in a one-off game at the end of the season, which would be fantastic.
We're almost at the quarter-final stages of the Tipperary Cup as well, which surprises me.
Yeah, and it's 2 Mile Burris against St. Michael's.
I know, yeah.
So, and there's a new Premier Division Shield we're led to believe that's going to be established, and the draw was made for that during the week, and it's 2 Mile Burris and St. Michael's again.
Fantastic.
Town against Peak Villa. So we're getting some rendition of 2 Mile Burris and St. Michael's this season.
Yeah, well, it's marvellous. The quality is really, really high. Barry, as always, thanks for your time tonight. We'll talk next week. We'll have longer next week, I hope.
Thanks a million, Ron.
No problem. Barry Ryan joining us there. Unfortunately, that is all we've time for. Ian O'Connor produced. Don't forget Tipp Kilkenny next Saturday night. We'll be back to you next Monday night. All the very best. Good night and good luck.
Online.
On your smartphone.
On your